One second. Okay, so for US oil, it's going to be US OIL because I know some people aren't going to know what the ticker is to put it into TradingView. And this is going to be gas, so it's going to be NGAS for gas. Gas moves a little bit slower than the oil. So the oil you'll see when it takes off, it's taking off for days. Gas not as much. It'll take off a lot too, but you're not going to have as many days of a trend going as oil. So if you want to practice, this will be like you know how we compare the forex pairs, and I always tell everyone Euro USD would be what you want to practice on if you want to find a slower moving pair. So this would be like a Euro USD. It moves a little bit slower. So if you want to practice how to use the energies, I would start on the gas and then move over to the oil. So I have the pivots on here. This again, I'm always on the 1 hour, so that doesn't change. The same way you mark up the box with the forex pairs on the 1 hour, you're going to do the same thing with the U.S. oil and the gas. So I'm going to take off the pivots just so we can see, and then I'll put it back on. So what you're looking for, you're going to notice this with gas and with oil. When it consolidates, it's going to consolidate for a long time. So with regular forex pairs, you guys see sometimes it'll consolidate for 6 hours or sometimes 8 hours and then take off. Once in a while, you have a good 2 or 3 days where it's consolidating, but that doesn't happen often with the pairs. With these specific pairs, you're going to see when they consolidate, sometimes they'll consolidate for 2 days. But when they take off, it takes off. So you have a nice move on your hand. So I always say start with the line chart because it's going to be easy to see. So as soon as you see something like this, where you see it's dancing in the same little area, you see this is basically a whole day that it's doing that. You have time, so it's not something you have to rush. Whenever you're trading these, take your time, draw up the box, wait for the retest because you have plenty of time to jump in these trades. It's not something that's just going to take off real fast. So what I do is the same thing as with the box. You're going to draw this. But with these, I like to use the pivots to see where I'm going to get out. I'm going to actually draw two boxes because I want to show you something else as well. Hold on, guys. Sorry, let me turn that on. Okay, let me draw one more. Hold on. All right, so you're on the 1 hour. We're going to draw the box. When you put the pivot on these, you're going to notice, and if you guys, if you either one of you or if you're watching the recording, you haven't watched the pivot training, just send me a message or Bernadette and I'll have her send you all the pivot trainings I've done. There's about 3 or 4 of them. So what you're going to notice with these specific pairs when you're trading them, right before they take off, they're always going to be right over the main pivot line. So mine is white. If you have yours set up just like mine, it should be right over that white line. And what you're going to notice is when it takes off from that main pivot point, it's almost always going to hit that second pivot after the main one. But for sure, 100% of the time, it's going to hit the next pivot. So I always say play it safe. You don't have to go for the whole move. So if you look at this move right here, just from here to here, if you caught from the breakout from that first one to here, that's a good amount. You don't really need to trade this thing all the way to 2. I would say 80 to 90% of the time, it's going to go to that second pivot. But you can see right here, it falls short. It makes it because you see right here, it does make it. But you would have had to stay in this thing a whole day. So if you just go to the very first one, it's usually going to be, you can get there pretty fast, like within a day, maybe max like 8 hours, and you'll have a lot of pips. Now, these pairs, they pay well. They pay really, really well. So even with like a 0.05, 0.03, you're going to see you guys are going to do well. If your account is big enough to take a 0.10, which is, you're going to be nice, you don't need more than one position. You can open up one position on these things. If you're doing the 0.10 or bigger, you don't need to open up multiples. So you want to take it to the first zone every single time it breaks out of that box. So what you would do is you draw the box, just like I did here. You see I drew two boxes. And when you come to once you put the pivots on your chart, you should see it right around that very main pivot. And just wait for the breakout. You're going to do the same thing like in the box training. Go down to the lower time frame, either the 5 minute or the 15. Make sure it respects that box. And once you see that entry, I also do the same thing. I enter on the very first AC bar. So nothing changes. Everything stays the same as the box. The only thing you're looking for is to make sure, hold on, right here. It's kind of hard to see while I have the pivot still on. So right here is that retest. You see it breaks out of the box. There goes that retest. It came back and it goes right down to that first pivot. And it's gonna do this like clockwork every single time. Now remember, you're not gonna get a ton of moves when it comes to these pairs because they consolidate for usually a day, 2, 3 days, especially oil. You're going to see that oil tends to consolidate sometimes for 2 or 3 days. But the move from oil, if you just trade oil, there's about 2 people in our group that are now just trading oil. If you just trade oil, that's your week. You don't have to trade anything else. Trading oil is almost like trading Ethereum or Bitcoin. You just stick to that. You really don't need to touch anything else because the move takes a long time to set up. But once it breaks out, you're going to ride that thing for a little while, usually like a day or two, and you're going to get a ton of pips. So this is no different. I'm going to start off without the pivots. Hold on, where are they? I want to take them off. Let me just do this. So we're on the 1 hour. And you can see right here, this is all consolidation. So you can see this is a good amount of days right here. This is 1, 2, like 2.5 days. So you see it consolidates for a while. And if you're used to more, if you're more used to looking at the candles, this is what it's going to look like when it's consolidating. So you're going to see when you come onto this chart on the 1 hour, you're going to see like, oh, it should look like the trade is not doing anything, or like I like to say, it's dancing around. It's going up, coming down, going up, coming down, but it's staying in the same little box. If you see that happening, and again, this is why I say you don't have to rush when it comes to trading, especially oil, because if it really is consolidating, it's going to be consolidating for a day to 3 days. I've seen oil consolidate for 8 days. So the longer it's consolidating, the bigger the move. So if you come onto the 1 hour chart and you see that this thing has been consolidating for 5 days, 6 days, get ready because that thing is, when it takes off, that probably will pay your rent, your mortgage, because that's going to be a huge move. So you can see right here, it finally breaks out. It breaks out, it comes back, it retests, and you can catch this whole move. This is a lot of pips. And if you switch to the pivots, like I was telling you, it should have been on the 1, on that main pivot. Hold on. Let's go back. Ooh, I hope it's not too unstable. So there you go. You see, you're always going to notice if it's really consolidating, it should be right on that main pivot. So it's kind of like giving you like a flag telling you, okay, get ready. This thing is getting ready to take off. Now, if you see that it's consolidating like somewhere here, you see it's not really over the white. I know we still have some time. But as you can see, as it gets ready to take off, it's almost always going to be directly on top of that middle line. And that's kind of giving you the heads up, okay, get ready, start watching this thing because it's going to take off. Now, you don't have to sit here and watch this at like all day long. I know one of you told me you were watching this thing like just sitting. Remember, you're still waiting for that retest. So you could just check it once every hour or once every 2 hours. Just keep coming back to the hour and see, okay, did it break out of my box? Let me draw another box so we can do it in real time. So I would draw another box here. So you could keep coming back every 2 hours. it say, all right, did it break out? Nope, didn't break out. Did it break out? Okay, nope. Right here, you see it's breaking out. Now I'm watching this thing. And so now I'm going to drop down to the 15-minute and wait for that retest. If it comes back and retests that box, I'm in it to the next pivot. So the thing is, you can see with this, it took off from the main pivot, but it didn't really break out of that box until the next pivot. So what that means is, remember, I said it's always going to go one full pivot once it fully breaks out of the box. So once it broke out of that box right here, you're good to the next pivot, which is going to be the R2. Again, 80 to 90% of the time, it's going to go two pivots from the breakout of the box. So if it breaks out here, this will be one pivot, two pivots, but that's not always guaranteed. So if you want just a less risky trade, always take it to that first pivot, and it's more than enough pips, especially with oil. It doesn't look like a big move when I have the pivots. Hold on, let me show you. It's a big move though. So this will be the first TP that you would have took it to, this once it broke out, and this would be TP2. Ooh, hold on, that wasn't accurate. I want to show you. When the pivots are not on here, you can see it's a nice move. So right here would have broke out this box. You're gonna take it to the first TP. I'm usually done. When it comes to oil, I don't normally ride them out. And you could take it to the second TP. That's using the pivots. If you know you mostly always use zones, especially if you trade crypto, this is going to be no different. Take it to the first zone. So that first zone would have been here. Would have been right here. You see, that's the first zone. So you would have took this whole move right here. And that, trust me, that's more than enough pips. As you grow the account, you'll be able to open up max 2. I don't like to open up a lot of positions with oil because if you're wrong on oil, it can really eat your account, especially if you're using bigger lot sizes. So 1 to 2 positions is more than enough until you really get used to it. And then if you have a few thousand in your account, then you can go for a few more positions. But anything under like 2,000, 1,000, stick to one position. You really don't need to have more than that because it's going to pay you more than enough. But that's all you're doing with oil. You're just looking for those long consolidation periods. So you can see it's not something that you're trading constantly. So here's one right here. And you can see what I'm talking about. This is what? 1, 2, like I would say 2 days and maybe like a couple hours before the takeoff. And for those of you that are used to using the channel, same thing. Whenever you see that angle, you can make that same box and wait for the takeoff. I prefer to use the regular box when it comes to oil because when you get that flat consolidation, it's a nice move. It's usually a very sharp move. So if you're going to zone 1 or pivot 1, it's going to get there fast. When you're trading this using the channel, sometimes it'll be a little bit longer of a takeoff or it's not as clear. It's not always as clear. So just wait for those flat consolidation periods and you're going to get really, really nice moves. I want to see a few more. Hold on. And this is why I tell you don't open up too many positions. So you see this spike right here? It doesn't happen often. So this is the 1 hour chart. If you look, you don't really see that happen too often, but it happens. So you don't want to be risky with your account. I know somebody told me the other day they opened up like 6 or 7 positions on oil and they got caught. And it wasn't even a big, this is a really big spike. Now I've seen oil do this maybe about once a month. So you can see it doesn't happen often, but don't be risky with your account. So make sure you're not over leveraging because you're going to notice, okay, this thing is paying me really well. It pays as good as crypto, but not as risky. Crypto could be a little bit more risky because the spikes are bigger. But if you get caught in one of these spikes on oil, it absolutely will blow your account because you can see this is a huge, look at this. It took this long to go all the way up and it's the same amount of pips right here in one shot. So whenever they do that, they do it about once a month. If you see it, now you're pretty much safe for a little while. You're not going to see it again for a while. But just be very careful. For those of you that are doing long-term, the swing trades, You want to look back on the 1 hour and try to find oil's just been going up. It's been crazy. Try to find the last time it was at that level. You're not going to find it with oil right now because it's been going up. If you can't find it and you think it's going to be going far, this is for the more advanced people. I want you guys to still follow those pivots. Don't go past the third pivot with oil. And I'm going to show you what I mean. It rarely, if ever, goes past 3. So if you're trading this right here, so let's just say you got in right here, you're going to take it to the first. There's 1. Let's say you want to keep writing it, you're more advanced, you see it's still going. There's 2. I'm not going past 3. So this will be considered 3. It took off from here. So this is 3. I'm not going past that. It's very risky to go past 3 because it doesn't always go past. And when it gets to 3, a lot of times oil sometimes will do a sharp reversal and take you right back to where it started. So that means if you're in a lot of profit, you'll just break even. And that's the worst feeling, is like being $300-400 in profit because this thing can pay you that well, and then all of a sudden you're back down to just breaking even. You're like, oh, it took like 2 days to get there, and in 10 minutes you made nothing. So just take it to the first one, guys, and you guys will be safe. You're gonna make a lot of money just doing this. Don't make it complicated. Just draw the box. Wait for the retest on the 15 or the 5. It doesn't matter. It's always gonna come back and retest. And if you're not sure if you drew your box correctly, if you're not sure if you drew the box correctly, being that it's always going to take off from that center pivot, just wait for it to go back and tap the center pivot. That way you don't have to worry about, okay, did I draw it right? It doesn't really look like it's hitting the box. When it comes to US oil, just wait for it to go back, tap that middle, and then wait for that very first AC bar pointing up or down and take the trade. Just get in the trade, ride it to the first pivot, and you guys are good. You're in the money right there. All right, oh no, I didn't even mute you guys. Let me know who has questions. I hear you. Uh-huh. Do it on the 1 hour. I'm able to trade this on the 15-minute, but my eyes are just more advanced with these charts. So I don't recommend trading it on the 15-minute because you really need to see that consolidation. Sometimes on the 15-minute chart, it'll look like it's been consolidating a while, but it hasn't. It's just that it's the 15-minute chart, so it kind of looks that way. If you want to get in on that really nice move, the big move, then you want to mark it up on the 1 hour. No, you can still use the candles. When I trade personally, I only use the line chart just because as you become more and more advanced trading, you're not going to really need to see the candles like that. You'll be able to take a lot of these moves off of the line chart. What I've noticed, and there's a few people in the group now that are only using the line, and at first I thought it was just me, but now it's confirmed because people are saying the same thing. I noticed for myself when I trade with the line chart, it's just less anxiety. Because sometimes when you're trading with these candles, let me get rid of the pivots. Sometimes when you're trading with these candles, you see how you see this spike right here? This wick, how it spikes out? So what happens is when you're trading this, it's like you can feel your emotions. If you're trading this live, you're like, oh my god, okay, did I miss the move? Did it just jump out? So when you're trading with the line chart, you're not gonna see that. You see, you don't see it. You don't see it. When it's a real move, you're gonna see it really comes out of the box. It comes back and it tests. So all those emotions that you would normally have from it, oh my God, did I miss it? Did it jump out already? Oh my God, I can't believe I waited 2 days and I missed the move. All those emotions are gone, and you only get in when the trade is ready. When you see how clean it looks with the line, you can tell if it's ready. So that's the difference. But if your eyes are used to the candles, then stick to the candles. Yeah, see, but that's the thing. For some people, when they're looking at the trade, they, especially newer traders, this happens a lot for the newer traders. When they're looking at the trade, as soon as they see some of the body leaving the box, they're like, okay, I'm gonna get in right now, and it's too soon. It wasn't ready yet. The pivots are going to be a confirmation, yes. It's just you can use it as just an extra confirmation, and also as a guide to tell you where to get out of that trade. Because like I said, it's always going to go to that first pivot. So it'll help you with better exits. So you're not staying in the trade too long and then losing the trade. Okay, that's fine. That works too. Don't do more than two positions. But I'm gonna tell you the method that you're using of measuring the candle. If you're gonna do that with oil, just be very careful. Make sure that you're measuring that candle exact. Because if you're off by 2 pips with oil, you'll lose the whole trade. You have to be very careful that if you're gonna do that method of measuring and then doubling, it has to be exact. You can't be off. It's more accurate, yes. It's not that it's more accurate because measuring the candle doesn't work, but what I notice people do when they measure the candle, sometimes they don't measure from the body from the beginning of the body to the end. Sometimes they're a little bit off, especially people using an iPad. They're going to be a little bit off when they start measuring. So for that reason, sometimes the candle is not the right length, body to body. Yeah, from body to body. But if you're measuring, let's just say on an iPad, sometimes you might click on a certain area and it doesn't start off measuring from there. So you're gonna be a little bit off. Measuring the candles on certain devices are tricky. Measuring on your phone, measuring on an iPad, you don't always get an accurate result. So I would say if you have any of those devices, you want to use either the zone to find your exit or use pivot. Yeah, and it also depends on which broker you're using. Certain brokers will have different kinds of oil, but they're usually not going to have more than two options. So whatever option the broker you're using has, you can use it. If they're going to move the same. Yeah, they're going to move the same. They just might have a different ticker. Yeah, you know what? I'll tell Bernadette to put it in the group when when we post this. I believe that if there's not four, there's three. But I'll tell her. I'll post all of them. That way you guys have it. You're welcome. Any other questions? No. Okay. All right. I'm gonna stop the recording. All right, give me like 10 minutes so that I can upload this, and I'm gonna make sure that Bernadette puts those recordings in so you can watch the pivots. You're welcome.